Next session, which is about addressing policy and planning issues in India's building and construction sector. Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a privilege to have him amongst our midst today to address us on policy and planning issues in India's building and construction sector. Please join me in welcoming the Director of HIRCO Project Company, Mr. Vasudevan Suresh.
We are in a situation where the whole world is changing in a large way from about 6 billion population 6.1 in the 2000 to maybe around 9.3 billion by 2050. And mind you, we were just about 2 billion for the whole world in 1900. 1900 to 2000 we added 4 billion, we came to 6.1, and there we are adding another 3.3 in half the number of period. But most important is that the developed world is just about 1.2 billion. That's going to come down where no problems are there, all wealth, riches are there, no housing problem, no sanitation problem, no road problem, not too much building required, etc. There the whole thing is going to shrink from 1.2 billion down to 1.1 billion, where the developing countries where we are going to increase in a massive way from 4.9 billion to 8.2 billion. And India itself is one among them particular thing with 1/6 of the world population. So you got to think in terms of how we take care of this massive needs, and the population dynamics is phenomenal. We are just around 32 million in 1947 when we became independent, and we crossed the billion mark in 11th of May, and the last census we took, we were 102 million, and the way we are going, we have to touch around 1.45 billion or 145 crores of population. Another important thing is we are also going from the rural-urban shift to small 16% urbanization to already here. We are going to be 40% urbanization. We are going to be an increasingly urbanized country into a very large way. As I said, India in its last census were about 100 crores and in the 2011 we have become 121 crores. We added about 21 crores of population in the just 10 years time period. We are adding at the rate of 20 million or 2 crores every year. At this rate, if you go, we are in 2014 now, we are already 127 crores now. We are going to be 145 crores or adding 45 crores of population. Ladies and gentlemen, in just 20 years time period, it took 5,000 years of India's civilization, 3,000 years BC and 2,000 years AD to just make it 33 crores. 5,000 years, 33 crores. 20 years, 45 crores. Any amount of planning that you have, either into the housing or sanitation of roads or water or energy or healthcare or hospitals or offices, cannot deal unless you optimally utilize all this resource. It also is a great opportunity for the topic that we are discussing of the building and construction industry, because you are dealing with the new population of about 45 crores or 450 million. We are going to build over the next 2.5 decades time period 2 times of India what you have built all these 5,000 years together. That's an opportunity for your architects, your engineers, your builders and all, because you're going to build of the order about 65 million houses, around 20 odd in the urban areas, about 45 in the rural areas. You got to bring all the schools, the hospitals, everything is construction, construction, construction and construction. So that's where the opportunities, more than 50% of this shift of the new population is all going into urban. For example, we added from 100 to about 121 crores. Out of the 21 crores, more than 11 crores went to urban areas, only 10 crores went to rural areas, and not the earlier 70-30 split of rural versus urban. Now, that gives an idea. We are about 5,161 cities in 2001. We are 7,300 cities in 2011. So we have a problem of roughly 65 million housing to be done now based on today's population, 20 in urban and 45 in rural. Infrastructure, we got to take it forward in a big way for utility, water, sewerage, waste management, roads, power. Social is health, education, recreation, culture, school building, hospital building, all the other things. And commercial infrastructure is all your office space, your shopping space, your retail space, your all the other multiplexes, etc., etc. So that put together is your building one. Building is just a housing segment, an infrastructure segment covering all the 3 components in a very large way. Now, cities are growth engines, phenomenal growth engines, because it gives opportunity along with the economic growth. It also contributes to over 70% of India's GDP. India was agrarian in 1947 or even up to 55 or something like that. Today, India's GDP, only 22% is based on agricultural produce. The remaining is predominantly on the service sector and other related components. predominant opportunity for jobs, housing and services, and also productivity and social environment. Now how do we capture this particular thing over there? Housing itself, I gave a figure of, based on today it's about 40 million, but if you take the next till about 20 years more population added, you got to do about 40 million. I told you we are adding at the rate of roughly about 22 crores every year. 2 crores every year, out of which about 1 crore is going to be in cities alone. So divide by 5, you require of the order of around 20 lakhs houses for every year the new population that's coming. So when you talk of a housing shortage and somebody saying, I'm going to do housing for all by 2022, when you're becoming 75 years of independence, you're talking based on what's your problem today, not the problem of so much. So you want to add that, that's the type of investment. You require of the order of $1.9 trillion of housing, of money to put only to take care of the housing needs alone. I'm just trying to give the dimension of the financial dimension, the physical dimension, so you know how do you use all the resources into a right way. You require 1 house for the high income group, then you require 2 houses for the middle income group, you require 3 houses for the low income group, and you require 4 houses for the EWS. All the big developers put their egg only in the HIG basket to do the 1/10 of the house, 4 plus 3, 7 plus 2, 9 plus 1. 10 houses you want to build for the country, that's the whole housing problem. You got to do housing for all. That means the inclusive housing to cover all the target group, and not only the high income group, which I call the luxury housing, the premium housing, affordable housing, and the social housing segments, as you would see in this particular thing. Maybe around 200 to 300 square meter, 100 to 160 square meter, a 50 to 80 square meter, or the lower segment or the weaker section, low income, around 30 to 40 square meter. That's your housing pyramid. That's the size of it. Don't touch one end of the housing, and this is housing, or the other end housing. So if you talk about the housing problem or the whole, what is to be required for different socio-economic background people, you require housing to be done. So you got to deal with all the housing. For maybe substantial support will come on the social housing segment as government to give land and money and all that. Maybe little subsidy will come into the affordable housing segment. Not much for the premium. And luxury segment is an area, in any case, market takes care. The people with affordable, phenomenal money, they will take care of the particular component. But then you have to see how you will deal with each of the segment in a large way. Equally important is the urban poverty, because if you have heights of prosperity, you also depths of poverty coming. Co-terminus, you are the skyscrapers, you are the juggi-jompadis or zoparpatis next to that co-terminus with that. You saw the numbers over there. You got 4 plus 3, 7, 70% of the problem of the bottom half. They call the tale of 2 cities, the happy city and the crying city. You got to see inclusive, how do you do sustainable development into a large way by taking care of both these particular aspects. So the disadvantaged, marginalized poor are the ones who will have biggest difficulty, because your problem of, you require employment for them to get salary, you require access to land, you get access to finance, you get to housing with all building material and technology, and the basic service of water, sanitation, and other related component there. So this is the way the slums themselves have increased from 28 million to 93 million. So if the population is increased today 93 million, divided by 5, because their families are even bigger, 6, around 15 million houses are required just for the weaker section component or the slum housing alone in different parts of India's cities all there. Roughly, national average is around 25 to 30% is the national average. But big cities like Mumbai and other places, you have more than 50% of them in the zoparpatis, or you got juggi-jompadis in north, or gudisalus or cheris in the southern cities. Whatever it may be, there are problems of housing of a large population, and you cannot have sustainable cities if you have nothing provided and everything provided. It can't be sustained. So you'll have problems of cities. They'll take over, the poor will take over the cities if cities cannot take care of the poor. As simple as that. That's the most important message the World Bank chief gave. It's not given by us. He said, if cities cannot take care of the slums, slums will take over the cities. That's the message. So whatever solution you want to provide in terms of technology is one dimension, but you've got to see that whatever you provide, the whole cities groups are taken care of into a large way. That's on the one side. You have another larger problem is on infrastructure, and mind you, I've only touched on the urban side here. Rural, I have not even gone on that. You only 84% giving some water. It says some availability. It's not that everybody is getting 135 liters. Even if you're able to get 40 to 50 liters per head per day, it's good enough. Not 45 gallons per head, even 10 to 15 gallons per head per day, it's phenomenal. Sewage and sanitation, out of the 7,300 cities, only 200 cities are sewered, ladies and gentlemen. Since we are all in big cities, since your city is sewered, all your sewage and sludge goes into some pipeline, end of the pipeline, some treatment plant might be there, hopefully. It's not also there in most of the cases there. Or even if sewerage is there, maybe 2/3 of the city is sewered, others are not sewered. So a situation you have of a large component over there. Roughly, you do not have access to toilets for 31% of the urban poor. If you take the overall, that's why they are trying to say toilets for all by 2019, which is the 150th year of Gandhi's birthday, is a big program for the new government wants to do it, because sanitation and hygiene is the most important component if you are able to provide that. Let's not talk a big thing, just a toilet for your needs. Do you provide it? Nothing great. 10,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees, including a disposal system, even a small septic tank or a soak pit, whatever. And refuse collection, only 72% collected, leave alone disposed. You still have 25% of cities which are still dark, and even there, 8-hour power outages, 10-hour power outages, etc. are there. So this is the urban infrastructure only on the utility side. I told you utility, social, and the other component there. And if you want to do that, McKinsey's have put this particularly, only India's urban need, you go $1.2 trillion. Add both that, $1.9 trillion for the urban housing, $1.2 trillion for the infrastructure required. So you require about $3.1 trillion of construction to be pumped in over there. That's going to be a size of your market, of the construction industry or the building industry over the next few years time period there. Now, how do you do that? We have to require more money to grow into the segment and enabling investment-friendly environment to be done. How can people pump money into it? Government pump it. People put money into that. So therefore, you require a lot of reforms in the urban housing and infrastructure sector, and government has to therefore play the right role. They got a catalyst. They got to enable people to do the work. Provide a framework by which all of us able to invest money into the area, because government does not have the money to do all this particular issue at all. Some amount of money can go. So instead of putting water for all by some day, they'll put some water for all by some years. You know what I'm trying to say is that's exactly what happened all over. Or some sanitation or some housing. You know what? That's not what is required. So here you require substantial amount of PPP model there. So you require a lot of new investment to come from the central government, state government, and local government. FDI and REITs is one. The new budget has been able, because I was also asked to include some of the new things that's coming from the government very recently, as old as even very last week or the budget, whatever. So I'm including wherever possible some of the. So effectively, if you have a $3.1 trillion requirement to put over the next about 10 to 15 years time period, we are roughly talking about of the order of around $200 billion of real money to be put into the segment year after year. Now, where does it come from? Now, are we giving a framework by which the money really comes is the next dimension we have to add on in this direction there. So we require access to money, very important. We require access to technologies. We can't build the way we built a sewage line for 4 years time period, 5 years time period, a rapid transport line for 7 years time period, a housing project in 3 years, 4 years. You got to do it 1 year, 2 year. Technologies all will undergo changes phenomenally in this area. You also require the effect project management system on that. So you require finance, money, you require technologies, you have to require the management system, even if you get all the other enabling framework. Now, this would mean that the construction industry is becoming a very important. You are talking roughly around 8.5 lakh crores, 8.5 lakh crores of rupees into the segment every year. Every year. It is also second largest, as Roshni rightly said, second largest in employment generation after agriculture. You have roughly 50 million construction workers coming in the sector on that. And any investment that you do in this particular area, 1 crore of investment that you put into any construction activity, you are generating 120 man/women years of employment. Namely, if I put 1 crore of investment, roughly 70 crores goes into building materials, and the 30 crores goes to the 65 construction workers. Mason, carpenter, barbender, plumber, electrician, painter, welder, all the trades available. So it goes. So if you put 1 lakh crore of investment into housing or building or any construction activity, you're generating 120 people will get, not man hours, man years of employment. 120 people will get for the whole year employment. So it's a phenomenal employment pump primer getting into it. And more importantly, if you're able to invest in this area, 275 industries get pump primed. Cement, steel, bricks, electrical, plumbing, fix it, every building material, your plywood, your door, your tiles, your lighting, your switches, every material, they're also providing employment directly for producing there. So you're also revitalizing the manufacturing sector in the building construction industry. So therefore the win-win. It's good for the country, good for housing, good for sanitation, good for road. It's also good for employment. It's also good for industry. At the end of it, it's going to become overall beneficial productivity for the country. That's why if you see the whole country building the nation for the additional 40 crores population. I'm talking of the 20 years of 2001 to 2021. 40 crores getting added. Can you believe 40 crores? America itself is only total is 28 crores. Total US. They are adding more than a US in 20 years time period. That's the type of potential you have. So even there, I try to make a slice because I'm in the sector for the last 50 years. How much of it goes into residential construction? How much goes into commercial construction? How much goes into IT parks, recreation, hospitality, entertainment, retail? This is the last 10 years investment that has gone. I tried to take the figure from 2004 to 2014, the Indian investment that's gone in over there. So biggest slice, of course, is the residential construction, commercial and all the other offices and all the particular things, 22%. IT parks after the big IT ES areas, 7%. Recreation, hospitality, hotel, entertainment, multiplex, etc. Retail in a big way has come in a big way at 4% level. So everything is a building, a residential building, an office building, a school building, a hospital building, industrial building. Any is a building at the end of the day. So how do you deal? All that she said on saving energy, saving water, everything will start coming in the particular thing in those areas. So it's all resource. How do you use all the resource? You have limited money available. How do you use finance better? You have limited material available. She said all the construction that goes up is all below the ground. How you take it out? Whether stone to be taken or aggregate to be taken or any material to be taken, you manufacture only from those particular areas. How do you use that comes into a very, very good way. Another major problem you have, I try to slice this information for 15 years time period. Inflation is the biggest topic for everybody. Onion price, tomato price, oil price, fish price, egg price, everything. Depending on which part of the country you are. Egg was a big topic 2 days back. Onion was a big one. None of these things are relating to construction. You'll be shocked, ladies and gentlemen, that construction cost increases every year 50% more than inflation. If inflation is 6%, your construction goes by 9%. If inflation is 5%, 7.5%. The reason is all the building material industries are not covered in the 300 items which are part of the wholesale price index or the consumer price index. Cement is not included, steel is not included, plywood is not included. None of the material is included on that. So every time inflation goes up. So I try to give 3 particular figures very carefully drafted on that. How incomes go up, how wholesale price index goes up, how construction cost goes up. So you'll understand. So by the way, construction costs and affordability, if somebody had a gap between salaries and house, is this gap, that gap is widening. That means effectively what's happening, the increasing cost of everything, the cost of a building, a commercial building for lease rental or a residential building for your purchase or a hotel building for somebody to put a hotel industry or a hospital industry or what can I say, retail, education, school building, education as a project. Now that's becoming increasingly what they can afford to put and what cost that's going up. Why? Why is it going up like that? It's going up because there are so many issues there. In spite of the fact we want the building to be strong, durable, safe, functional, aesthetic and affordable. These are the predominant requirement everybody wants. The architects want, the engineer wants, the builder wants, the user wants the building to be of this particular thing. Now, you have a difficult, and you want the thing to be environment friendly, ecologically appropriate, energy saving, whether it's going to be building energy or as she said, the embodied energy to be saved and economical. You require, the new building blocks are not going to be the way you are done the last 50, 60 years of independence is not going to new building block. If you're going to have clay brick available earlier, clay brick is not going to be the new one because you won't get that clay available because your number of stomachs have increased from 33 crores to 100 crores to 121 crores to 145 crores. There you are. You require more wheat, more rice, more vegetable, more everything. And they are all the fertile. And the best clay for making bricks is the most fertile clay. So you can't remove the fertile clay, and you can't cut the tree. You don't get the coal for the power station. So you have to cut the trees to burn the bricks. Am I right, sir? So you burn every 100 square feet of house that you do, the brick house, you are burning 3/4 of a ton of firewood. You are 1,000 square feet house, not a big one, 1,000 square feet house. Come on, that's the smallest house. You have burned 7.5 tons of firewood. You. Directly. Because you use brick through her architect. Brick house. Cow dung, brick and all that. You're going to do that, all that. You got to really see that. So, whereas I've got a good friend, a lot of good friends of mine working in the sector. Don't use my clay at all. I use all waste material. I use a fly ash coming from thermal power station. I use the lime sludge from the industrial factories. I use the gypsum coming from the phosphatic factories. So I combine fly ash, lime and gypsum. I add it together. I got a new wonder product called Falgi, the new building block as against a burnt clay brick. Same size, 9, 4.5, 3. If you want to have rat trap bond or whatever technology you want to use that, you can still use that particular component on that. I think it'll come later, sorry. As he's coming forward. So what I'm trying to say is, okay, this gives an idea of the amount of cement used, steel used, bricks used, timber used, sand used, aggregate used, and the labor component used on that, and the largest construction worker. And you have a major component of problem over here. The skill levels. Unfortunately, Indian construction workers are neither trained nor certified. You can't do that anywhere in the world. They've got to be trained and certified like an architect, like an engineer, like a supervisor with a polytechnic or a diploma. You're required to do that. But they come unskilled, semi-skilled and skilled over a long training period, or their learning curve is your house, your building, etc. So nobody has bothered. No contract document in India, you'll be shocked to know, ever says you shall use trained, certified construction workers. All contract documents, you go to Malaysia, you go to Indonesia, you go to Thailand, China, of course, is there. You can use only trained, certified construction workers. How do you take an unskilled, semi-skilled, and skilled construction worker? You've got to invest substantial amount of fund in this area into a large way. I think something on land. I wanted to talk on land is a major component which is for making available housing. And even though urban land ceiling has liberated about 2.3 lakh land there, but if you want to deal with the doubling of the population, come on, where the hell are you going to put them? You increase from 28 crores to 56 crores, and they occupy 3.5% of total India's land mass. 70% of India's GDP is coming from cities, occupying only 3.5% of total India's land mass. So doubling of the population, where will you go? Either you go vertical or you go horizontal into doubling the urban land front. You got to create another 3.5% of India's land mass into urbanization activity. 100 new cities, etc., are part of the things in that direction on that. Fortunately, LARR, which was a disaster, land acquisition, it would have taken 5 times more cost to get the land, another 4.5 to 5 years to get the land. Costly, time consuming. They are hoping to simplify. Hopefully they do that better for everybody. Okay. Another major thing in line with the building code, your standard planning standards, development control rules, phenomenal change. Low-rise high density, plotted with group housing, cluster planning, grid iron layout, and the FAR to be increased in a large way. All over the world, you are having 5, 6, and we are only having 1.5 and 2 FSI. You go to Singapore, you go to Hong Kong, you go to Thailand, you go to any of the cities that matter over there. They're all dealing with 5 to 8. So there's a large requirement of using that. Then the other one is to take care of the land reservation for the weaker section and low income, which I told you for the social housing, and another dimension which is done. This already I covered there. This is the money required for housing. Fortunately, finance is flowing in the direction. On an annual, about 1.5 lakh crores of money is coming here, 20 to 30% growth coming into the segment. So housing finance is now increasingly available now. You require money at low rates of interest, longer repayment period there. Fortunately, the current budget, just about 2 days back, RBI has permitted a 50 lakhs loan priority sector. That means you get long-term money and lower interest rate money away. We want to add that provident fund money, insurance money, and pension money throughout Europe as well as US and Singapore, because all your money is short-term money. You borrow from the market, deposits in 5 years and 7 years. But you want to lend it 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Your asset liability mismatch between short-term borrowing and long-term lending. So only way you can get access to long-term money is getting access to money from pension fund, insurance, and the provident fund sector. So some little work 2 days back, Mr. Ram, the Reserve Bank governor has done some good work in that. Another thing on rental housing. The only rental housing that you have is you build your house, you give it on rent. She builds a house, she gives on rent. Nobody has got rental housing as a property. You have more than 55% of Indians in urban areas are living in rented houses, not in your own house. So if you want to do that, you have to have some of those things which ties you. You bought your rope, you tied your hand, you tied your feet and say, I can't run. You got to take the scissor, cut that particular thing and get your thing liberated to make rental housing market more viable, etc. So some of the things I indicated what requests you've done in this particular area. So substantial amount of addition for rental housing is a big component. Most of the chambers are very keen to push through some of these particular areas into making available additional land. I said 4% to 10%, floor ratios to be increased, stamp duties to be reduced, promote appropriate technologies that she went into a big list on walling, roofing, energy efficient, etc. And fiscal tax incentives housing. Your tax incentives are 1.5 lakhs for interest income to be increased to about 2 lakhs. People wanted 2.5 lakhs. They want to make it 5 lakhs. Why not? At least up to loans up to 30, 40 lakhs, you get tax benefit coming onto that. And incentivize corporates to invest into public housing is also another important component coming on. At the end of the day, we are thinking in terms of a roadmap and action plan. The nation building means 2 segments of housing as well as building construction as well as infrastructure construction. So the policy framework is available. Now we got to see each one works on. It doesn't end there. And this is at the right time where her presentation which came into that area of the technologies required, the building blocks required, the efficiency of the green building movement comes over there because you have very limited resource available. Water is not available. How do you make the aquifer recharging, your wastewater recycling, using for all the flushing purposes, the amount of water can you bring down 30 to 40% in your housing program. Green building is nothing but a measure, a label or a packaging to take care of all that. Can I make the building 30 to 40% energy saving by using the right technologies over there? Can I make by active and passive design? Architect can do the job. The electrical engineers can do the job. What can you do? And the building civil engineers can do by making thermally efficient walls or the roof so the heat load, light comes in, not the heat comes in, not the glare comes in. How do you design such particular structures where you could do that? So energy to be saved, water to be saved, material which are conserved, less and less of material which are high embodied energy, which affects the environment. Use new building blocks for the construction over the next few years. Faster construction, speedier construction to be done by prefabricated technologies to be adopted. So these are areas. How do you do infrastructure laying to be done easier instead of a trenchless technology is coming so you don't dig at all. No dig technologies are coming over there. All pipeline, sewer line, water lines, everything is laid with no trenches being made. So all these technologies are phenomenal and that list is very big. The second one after money I saw technology I said over there. So it's a big list. Actually I was supposed to give half an hour an overview of where you stand in the country in the present context when you are getting into a new direction of growth there. Phenomenal opportunity for growth, opportunity for using all the latest technologies. Money flow will come. That's what government can help you do. They won't put the money directly. They can help you to ensure the money flow comes in from various, you're saving money to come in, the FDA to come in, real estate investment trust to bring in the money, public-private partnership to come in. Those are all ways by which you'll be able to get more players, you'll be able to get money, land can give, policies can come from there, but at the end of the day, delivery has to be at your level. This group, they're not government. I don't find any government face here. So predominantly it has got to be the architects, the engineers, which will cover a civil engineer, a structural engineer, the public health engineer, MEP of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, firefighting, landscape specialists, building material technologists, all put together. You have to provide the answer where how do you optimize resource? Use the resource effectively, efficiently, economically, and environmentally safe. That's the way whole thing. That's all the message. How do you use all the resources, all the building materials and technology resource and natural resource of the air, the light, the water, and the land? How do you use land efficiently? How do you use optimally? How do you use the building material technology? That's the end of it. Whether you call it a green building, a smart building, an intelligent building, whatever, depending which forum. I'm just coming out from the Smart Intelligent Building Forum. I gave the keynote there. I was there from, I'll be getting in the afternoon the skyscraper session. That's going to the afternoon, some other hotel. But topic is exactly the same. They're using the same going up vertically in terms of, so skyscraper become an answer from a 20-story to 30-story to 40-story to 60-story. What are the challenges you have in those particular areas? At the end of the day, you require all solutions. You require solutions for a 100 lakh plus mega city. You look at 50 to 100 lakh city, which is also mega in India, but not internationally. Metro cities from 10 lakhs to around 50 lakhs. All the municipal corporation towns around 5 lakhs and plus 117 cities, and get into 1 lakh plus cities over there. So if you had solutions for covering all the requirements. All the things will not have high rise. You'll have medium rise, 20 stories, 10 stories, you have 5 stories, all that. But you require the type of solutions required to deal with that. I think I end on that. I can take maybe 1 or 2 questions.
My question is, I've got 2 questions. First is regarding the real estate development and the sustainable development. When we do all this sustainable development and all these things, we see all the rules and regulations, they are becoming prohibitive rather than incentivizing such things from the
I don't agree. Go ahead.
I can give the examples, but that can be the separate discussion.
We are real estate developers. We are in the sector. We do all the real estate on sustainable development principles. It is not prohibitive. There are all the right rules and framework